court in Myanmar has sentenced an American journalist to 11 years in prison on charges brought by the military leadership, which seized power in a coup in February. Danny Fenster was convicted on 3 charges of endangering the reputation of the armed forces and associating with illegal organisations. Our Southeast Asia correspondent Jonathan Head joins us now from neighbouring Thailand. Jonathan, welcome to you. Tell us more about Danny Fenster and what he's being found guilty of.
Well, we know the charges because they're very specific. What we don't know much about is the procedure in court, because it was held in secret inside the notorious insane prison in Yangon, where he's been held since he was more or less pulled off a plane about to leave Myanmar back in May. Now, he's one of around 50 journalists who are still in detention. Many Burmese journalists, of course, in detention with far more dim, desperate outlooks than his even. But this was a pretty shocking sentence, because the charges that the military applied to Danny Fenster related to a news organisation. It's one of several that are still putting out independent news, critical of the military, that he actually left more than a year and a half ago. So this was pointed out to the court that he no longer worked for this organisation, therefore the charges had no basis. But perhaps not surprisingly, given the way in which the courts work in Myanmar, the judge chose to ignore that and impose this sentence. It is a very severe sentence, 11 years, but then I should say savage sentences are the norm in Myanmar. We saw 2 senior officials from Aung San Suu Kyi's party sentenced to 75 and 90 years in the past week, essentially just for being associated with her party, the party that was ousted by the coup. So we shouldn't be too surprised by the length of the sentence. And I think we should presume that there will continue to be a great deal of diplomatic activity aimed at getting Danny Fenster out fairly soon.
Yeah, a desperate situation for so many journalists in Myanmar. As you say, diplomatic negotiations ongoing. What do we understand the US is pressing for?
Well, they've made it clear that his detention is unacceptable. What I think is more of a mystery is what the military government wants to do with this. I mean, anyone can see that the charges are absurd, that the entire legal process that is being used, not just against him, but against all dissidents, is almost farcical, even by the rather poor standards of court process we tend to see in this region. The US will keep pushing, but I think they will probably push in a fairly low-key way in the hope that they can persuade the military to release him as a goodwill gesture. I doubt they give any kind of public concessions. You know, the US has already been applying more and more sanctions on the military leaders, and perhaps the military government imagines that, you know, somehow it can get some sort of good out of this. It's very hard to see. We have to view him as a hostage, really, because the charges don't stand up and because it's making Myanmar the government look so bad. Presumably the military has its own reasons, and I think the diplomacy will continue at a very low level just on his case. But remember, there are, of course, thousands of other people who will remain incarcerated in Myanmar, often in really dreadful conditions.
OK, Jonathan Head in Bangkok, thank you for the update.